Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast, and I'm brilliant to welcome on board Jamie Leonard from RecFest fame and all kinds of other kind of great kind of ventures. Jamie, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast day. For anyone who's kind of never heard of you, where have they been? They've obviously been under a rock, but maybe you could give us a little bit about your kind of background and what you do now.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, James. Good to be here. Jamie Leonard, the Recruitment Events Company. Recruitment Events Company has two major brands that people might be aware of. RecFest, which in the UK is the largest event in the world for talent acquisition, just launched in the US. And then we have the Resource and Leader 100, which is our peer leadership network, predominantly Europe, recently launched in the Middle East as well. And in terms of my background, I've been to a few places, worked at a few job boards in my time. Used to run some really small events. Actually, you attended a few times, if I remember, back in the day.
I believe so.
Down in Farringdon, the sort of the speed network and stuff. So did that for a few years and landed with the Recruitment Events Company, partnering with my wife and business partner.
I mean, it's a pretty kind of interesting background because it's, for the last kind of, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe more, it's solidly events, right? And most people you find who are in kind of recruitment events don't kind of either last that long or kind of dip in and out or just can't, you know what I mean? So, you're one of the only people that I can think of that has kind of got a solid background in recruitment events. And, there's no one else, I don't think, who's kind of, doing what you do.
I don't believe so. I think maybe the in-house recruitment guys have probably been doing it for a similar length of time. But no, we started off many years ago with a real basic format, the speed meeting format, which was pretty unique at the time. As I said before, the recruitment events at the time were not fantastic within our space in terms of some of the conferences that were available. They all followed a very similar format that was pretty archaic now when you look at it. It was very much around speaker on stage talking to a big room of people, generally in a really beige surrounding some sort of conference center. And the content was regurgitated. There wasn't much interaction there at all. There was very little onus put on the audience themselves and their own development. Very, very geared towards sponsors as far as I remember. So we thought we'd do something different. And we launched with a speed networking program, which lasted for about 4 or 5 years. It was a great little way to kick off. It was different. It had a low barrier to entry, so we didn't have to put a lot of investment into it. It was myself and my wife starting out from day one, so we didn't have any investment at all. But it allowed us to build up a really good audience. And as I say, I remember, you've been at a few of them, some of the ones down in Farringdon, and we'd had like 15, 20 TA people at every event, and we looked at something like CIPD. And I remember some of the people who worked for us saying, wow, we're never going to be at that level. And we had a mentality which was, let's just win one fan at a time. With every event, if we can grab one person that is a fan all of a sudden, at that 15, then we can build on that. And that's pretty much what we've done for the last 11, 12 years is from every small event to large events we do, how can we start to win fans and bring them into an advocacy piece that allows us to amplify the volume of the event. In terms of sort of being here, consistently for probably 12 years. Most people don't, because it's not easy. Events are a very, very difficult industry, especially during the pandemic. It wasn't easy to be an event company within the recruitment space. On both sides, you're getting hammered. On one side, no one's doing any hiring. On the other side, you can't actually gather people together. So that was really difficult to go through that. And you can see why a lot of companies, a lot of people have opted to go and do something else, because that was 3 years of real grind.
Yeah. So let's kind of travel back in time. There must have been a point where those kind of speed dating style scenarios moved into, and you started thinking about something bigger, and you got to kind of RecFest, right? What was that? What was that kind of process like?
So that process was sparked by a conversation in the bar, which most great ideas are. But unfortunately, the conversation wasn't with myself. So someone from one of our events was stood in the bar next to us after the event. And, you know what it's like. Sometimes if someone's having a conversation you want to listen to, your ear just naturally goes over to that conversation. And they were talking about the event on the day, and one of the people there said, it's a nice little event, but this company is never going to be a big event company. They'll just forever do their small events, and they won't compete with the CIPDs of this world and the other big events. And anyone that knows me will know I don't particularly like being told what I can't do. And that for me was the red flag. That was the onus. That was the rocket to say, well, we need, let's go and try something bigger. Let's give the industry something that they don't have right now. And, I've always been a big, big festival fan. And for me, a festival is about the music, but it's more about the connection with people you get there. It's about creating a kind of a utopia universe it's not real. It's just a space and time where people can be their best selves and live their best lives. And I kind of looked at it and looked at the event space that we had right then and said, well, yes, the speakers are important, but where's the connection piece? Where's the bit that really makes people want to come to this event, as opposed to be told they have to, or hey, I'm doing it to get out of the office because I don't want to be on a Friday afternoon. So we looked at the festival format. We looked at what we could take away from the festival format and started to build RecFest. So it was more about the connective piece between the users, the delegates, and there was a lot more onus put on the conversational piece. Yes, the speakers were great, and all the bands they would be in the festival, but there has to be more put on the actual people themselves. And we went out with our first event in 2011, 2014. And it was down in East London. And if I'm being honest, it was more of a conference with green carpet conference called AstroTurf on the floor.
Yes.
And it was okay. It was fine. 100 people, so what? We stayed committed to it though, because there was something there. It was unique. It was different. And not everyone loved it as well. This is the other point. Like probably 70% of the audience were like, yeah, it was cool. 30% was, we don't like this format. But we had enough advocates there. We had enough fans to build on. So next year we went to 200. And then, okay, we're at 200. That's great. And, we moved it to the HMS President on the Thames. So still a little bit funky, still a little bit different. In fact, that was the day of the largest travel strike in the UK. So no buses, no trains, no tubes. And here's us. We're bootstrapping our biggest event ever. This is, if it doesn't work, we're probably not going to be around the next day. And, we was like, okay, well, they're giving us the travel strike situation. So the team at the time were amazing. What they did, they literally just picked up the phone to every delegate and just said, look, let me show you an alternative way in. You can get the Thames Clipper. You can get a taxi. There's a bus going at this point. And we literally mapped out how you get to the venue for every single person, to the point we was actually connecting people to do taxi shares as well. Because it's just like, we just need to get them on this boat. And we ended up with 195 people at 200. Very, very proud of that moment. The team did incredible, and it allowed us to then kick on to next year. Next year, we go to Borough Market. So Borough Market was a massive step for us. It's an outdoors venue, so we were outdoors for the first time. We had an awful experience there in the morning. So we arrived about 6 o'clock. And I don't know if you know Borough Market, but it's a very the backside of Borough Market where we were supposed to be is a fish market generally. And because we were there, the fish traders were getting kicked out. And they were not happy that they were getting kicked out for the day. So there we are about to set up, and they all grabbed their bins of fish guts and fish heads and just basically threw the water where we were supposed to be having the conference. So then we've got fish guts everywhere, fish heads everywhere. The sun's coming out. The stink is starting to go up. I mean, it's one thing we've got 2 hours. What do we do here? So we end up sending some of the team down to a B&Q. We got buckets and bleach and mops, and we're there just on our hands and knees scrubbing this floor up to about 20 minutes before people come in. And that's the sort of stuff people don't see with events. They think, they turn up and they say, oh, it's great and it looks really nice and easy and isn't this lovely? But actually, it's that sort of stuff that goes behind it. So, yeah, I had plenty of those moments in the past.
So, but it's kind of it continually to kind of kicks on to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously, this year was at Nebworth and in Nashville, right? So, was that always the plan, that it was going to be that scale of event?
I think, if I'm answering honestly, if you'd have asked me in year one, I would have been happy if we'd have got to maybe 400 or 500 people a year. That would have been great. What we started to see, and it wasn't the direction of travel we were going in, but pardon me, in 2000 and I want to say 17, people started attending with their teams, and we started to notice, okay, so there's 4 people from Tesco's as opposed to 2 people, which you usually get at a conference, and then there was 8, and then there were 10, and I think the first team of 10, I think it was probably maybe Sainsbury's, and when you started to dig into it and say, well, why are you attending, with so many people, and it's because this is our celebration, this is our day. This is a celebration talent acquisition. We're going to use this as an opportunity to get our team together, to do all our learning in one day, to meet all our vendors and connections in one day. And then we're going to go back to the office. We're going to sit down and map out what we're doing for the rest of the year. And we were like, well, if everyone's going in that direction, let's lean into that. Let's go down that pathway. So we started to really promote RecFest as, yes, you can come individually and come as a pair and you'll have a great time. But you know what? If you want to bring 20 people from Amazon's recruitment team, there's a lot of benefit in it. And that's where the scale of RecFest has come. We were 5,000 people this year. We'll be 6,000 people next year in the UK. In the US, we're 1,000 people this year. First time there. We'll be 2,000 people next year. So the scale of RecFest, and here's the thing, you can do different. It's easy to do different. And RecFest is very different. Okay. It's easy to do normal, but it's also easy to do different. Doing different at scale is where the real hard work comes. And that's the bit which separates RecFest from everywhere else. Because you can hold an event on the side of a mountain if you want. Can you do it with 5,000 people? That's when it becomes a challenge.
Yeah. But I mean, the way that obviously, and you said the way you do it, and the kind of the basis of it is looking at a music festival, right? And so that's what the template is, and that is what people can kind of expect, because it isn't just around the great guests and the kind of the learning and the interaction with everybody. There's a fun fair, and there's music and things like that. There's something else all to it, right? Which isn't the reason why people are going. It's enhancing the reason why people stay, I'd guess, as well, and keep coming back. Which I think is the bit that does make it that little bit different.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think what we've always tried to achieve is, how do we take a business event, but do it in a style of something that people are more akin to doing on the weekend? How can we make it closer to what they would do with their mates as opposed to what they do with their work colleagues? Because if you can do that, you can blend the two. You create a certain level of stickiness for people to come back, but you also create an emotional connection with people that most conferences will never be able to, because you're more aligned. You're hitting a part of the brain that tells people it's more aligned to what they're doing in their personal life. And that creates that reason for coming back. I think we looked at 2022, 2023, 86% of companies that acquire tickets again. So it's the first one in the diary, and it's the first one people come back to. And what I always love, and the simplest way to explain it to people, and this is what I love. If you look on LinkedIn, when someone's leaving a business and someone posts a picture of them, says, "Oh, Johnny, shame to let you go, but thanks for the great times." 90% of the time, that picture's from RecFest. Right, the picture they're using, because it's not sitting in the office, it's not at the Excel center, it's the connection part, and that's what I love.
Yeah. So, as I said, one of the things again that's different about is the music, right? And you've had some pretty big bands you kind of play. I think it was Basement Jaxx, was it not, this year at
Basement Jaxx this year, yeah.
How do you how do you go about getting Basement Jaxx or these other big bands? How do you sell that? You go to their kind of their PR team. It's like, we got this recruitment event we want you to play at.
Yeah. Do you want to come to a HR thing and play? No, not really. It's an interesting one, because you have to. First of all, you've got to find someone that can appeal to sort of multi-generations, and that's the hardest part. There's stuff that people want that, that's great, but no one my age has ever heard of that, and there's stuff I want, and I get told by people on my team, no one knows who that is, sort of thing. So you've got to kind of find someone where, if the music goes on, even the people that don't know them go, "Oh yeah, I know that tune," right? So there's that. Finding people that are available is a huge thing. So we work with a lot of talent agencies, and now they come to us, to be fair, because we've been doing it so many years. Around about January time, we just start getting emails saying, "Hey, this person's available. Does it fit into the budget?" Obviously, that's a big thing as well. And is it going to enhance the event? Does it tie into the feeling of the event as well? And I think Basement Jaxx did a great example of that last year. The tent was packed, everyone's dancing, but that part of the day is the release. And it's more than just the music, right? That's the people go and they're listening to content all day, and they're speaking to our suppliers, and they're demoing products, and then they just get that bit at the end of the day where it's right now we get to let loose a little bit, and that's exactly what that part of the day's for. And again, like you said, it's a big part of why people come back, because it isn't like every other event in our space.
Yeah. So here's a question. I don't know. You might be kind of spoiling next year, but is there a band or an artist that you want on, you'd love to have there? Assuming they're multi-generational.
There's loads I'd love. Afford is
Yeah.
probably the different thing,
Well, yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
I heard Beyonce got paid 23 million to play in Dubai recently for an hour, so that might be slightly out of our wheelhouse. No, we've got a few people lined up. We haven't announced anyone yet, so I'm going to keep that one quiet. The guest speaker we have just signed will be announced in January. I'm really excited. So we usually have like a famous music act, but then also a famous speaker as well. I'm really excited about this one, but more on that in January. But yeah, no, there's loads of people we'd like. It's always about availability. Sometimes people just crop up. You go, actually, you know what? That would be pretty cool. We should look into it.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about kind of next year. Obviously, it's back to Nebworth again, and Nashville again as well.
Yes.
And so, where is potentially after that? Where's kind of where would you like to kind of go after that?
So I think we follow a fairly easy structure. So if you look at where we're building the RO 100 right now, which is the Middle East, that would be a softer landing for us than landing RecFest in a country where we have no community. So that gives you a potential indicator of future plans. Dubai for RecFest could be a lot of fun. I know that there's a big demand out there from the leadership audience. In fact, I've got a call with them on Wednesday this week because they're very keen to get RecFest moving out there. So potentially as the next one, yeah.
Okay. And anything else you can kind of you would like to have in the future of RecFest apart from maybe one in the Middle East or Dubai? What else can you see? Kind of what does your crystal ball tell you that you'd like?
I just think a RecFest that's accessible to all. I think that's a real key thing for me. In the past, um, I've been in the mindset of, well, people can travel, but a lot of people still can't travel, and a lot of people have restrictions from their businesses. So we need to make RecFest accessible. So in the US, we have Nashville. Does it mean we won't do something on the West Coast? Doesn't mean we won't do that. We might potentially look at that in the future, not this year, not next year, but maybe in the future after that. There's different places around Europe we could definitely look at. Australia is a huge market, but that's probably further down the line if we're being honest, just because of the time differences and everything else. We just want RecFest to be accessible. We believe that every TA person should be able to access a RecFest event because it's their day, it's their celebration. It gives them that lift, it's that energy boost of why they're in the market and why they do what they do. So yeah, we want to just make that as accessible as possible.
And before I let you go, it would be good to have just a kind of a little chat around the kind of general state from your perspective of recruitment events in general, right? Obviously,
Sure.
taking RecFest into account, where do you feel that there's the people are, you don't have to kind of name names, but is there anything we could the generally the events kind of around our space could be doing better, should be doing better, you know, something we can maybe or you've learned that you could kind of offer as advice? I don't know, but there's a lot of events out there, and some are great, some are not so great. So what does again your crystal ball tell you around that?
I think if I look at events at the moment in our space, in HR space, the recruitment consultancy space, if people are doing what they did pre-pandemic, then you'll probably find they're on the naughty list this year in terms of who's gonna survive and who's not. Just because I think the world has changed, and I've said to people before, we used to just try and get people out of the office. We're now trying to get them out of their houses. That's a lot more difficult. You have to create more of an experience for people. You have to offer more than just content. Content can be found on YouTube. It's amazing. You can open up TED Talks and you've got some amazing content on there. You need to offer more than that. There is an element of the pandemic taught us that there is no replacement for human interaction. And, we tried to do online events and we tried to do online networking during the pandemic, and it's fine for content, but that human interaction cannot be replaced online as it can be in person. So I think there's that part, there's the experiential part. You have to offer more, not falling down the trap of being too vendor heavy as well. Look, we know the market is tough right now, and look, we know that recruit market's tough, and that generally has a knock-on effect to how much people are spending at events. So there is a temptation from some organisers to go very vendor heavy with content and with their ratio of delegate to vendor. Be careful, because that can really kill your event very fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've all been to events like that. Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been great to kind of hear you talk and give us a little bit of history behind RecFest. Good luck for next year. I'm sure we'll catch up again soon. I might even come to RecFest. You never know.
Oh,
I'd love to. But for now, thank you very much.
brilliant, James. Thank you very much.